Welcome back to the Lightforge podcast. March of the Lich King card review. This is the last one. This is Warrior. We are at the end. If you're wondering, hey, isn't there this Death Knight class that everyone's talking about? What about Death Knight? We already did Death Knight 2 weeks ago. If you just look at the prior episode of the Lightforge podcast or the prior video series, not series, just video, that we put up. It is Lightforge 374, or I think it's just called like the Death Knight card review on YouTube. That'll be there, and it'll be all the cards. So if you're looking for Death Knight, go there. Otherwise, this is going to be the last video / last podcast episode or portion, segment, whatever. And we're going to cover Warrior. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Warrior got really powerful cards. Not really a surprise. Warrior usually gets powerful cards because its hero power is So the first big cards were, and Warriors, the most powerful Warrior cards are their rare cards. The first one is Ember of Strength. Embers of Strength is a A-tier card. A-tier card. Super good. 2 mana fire spell. Summon 2 1/2 guards with taunt. So that in and of itself is good for a 2 mana card. 2 1/2 guards with taunt. That is better than an Oiltron. That is good. Mana Thirst 6. Give them +1/+2. So if you just play this on turn 6 or after, you get 2/4 taunts for 2 mana. That's really good. It's a lot of taunt. It's a good amount of stats on the board too, and it's for 2 mana. You can't really ask for more. That is 4, 8, 6. That's 12 stats. Taunt for 2 mana. Like, super good. Okay. The other good card for Warrior that is also A-tier rated is Sunfire Smithing. Hold on, is Warrior the only A-tier? Oh no. Rogue has a whole bunch of A-tier cards. And that's it though. Yeah. Behind Rogue, Warrior is the second highest rated class for this expansion. Sunfire Smithing, 4 mana fire spell. Equip a 4/2 sword. So you already know it's good. But that's not it. Afterwards, give a random minion in your hand +4/+2. So in case you thought something like True Silver wasn't good enough anymore, which it kind of isn't. It's kind of a normal class card at this point. Especially for Warrior, which has other weapons. You're also just getting 6 extra stats onto a minion. Just 6 extra stats. You could probably play the minion the next turn, or on the same turn if you're playing this later on. I don't know why it's like this. It's just kind of an absurd card. It's A tier. So besides these A tier cards, you also have some B tier cards. The common B tier card, which is still better than the average card in your deck, is a Silver Fire Steward. Silver Fury, sorry. Silver Fury Stalwart is a 6 mana 4/8 taunt with rush. And it can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. So it's a 4/8 rush. It's about right for 6 mana. Then it also has taunt, which is a bit of a bonus. It has more health than it has attack, so he gets some taunt afterwards. And then there's another bonus: it can't be targeted by spells or hero. It's a B. There's enough things going on with it to bump it up to a B, but overall, it's kind of properly statted. Okay. The other 2 B tier cards are the 2 epic cards. So you're not going to see these a lot, but they are good. One is Sunfury Champion, 1 mana 1/3. After you cast a fire spell, deal 1 damage to all minions. So we've seen this before, in a core card. It is Pyromancer, and This one has 3 health instead of 2 though, so that makes it nicer. It's also only 1 mana, so that makes it more easy to immediately combo. It's a B. Disruptive Spellbreaker. This is a weird card. So this is a epic card in Warrior. And this means that warriors can now just do this. This is like a warrior thing now. And I don't think this was ever a warrior thing before this. So they're expanding what warriors can do. It's a 5 mana 4/5 card that says at the end of your turn, your opponent discards a spell. So warriors now have disruption. I mean, all classes kind of have disruption, but warriors have specific spell disruption. It's an interesting direction to go with warrior. But this is it now. This is a thing. Your opponent has to have a spell for this to do anything. You're losing stats because of it. It's a 5 mana 4/5. It's low stats. So you better make sure your opponent has a spell. You have no way of making sure your opponent has a spell. Unless they generated one, right? So you kind of just like hope for the best. But it's also useful if they don't discard anything, and then you can have a really good read, right? That they have no spells. I mean, they could have top decked a spell afterwards, but generally that they're not holding a spell. So that's also useful, even though you'd rather have them discard a spell. It ends up being a B. It's pretty fairly priced. And if it triggers again, what are the odds they have 2 spells? Maybe some, but if they have 2 spells, they know this card is on the board now. They're going to use their freaking spells the next turn. So this will almost never trigger a second time. But having them use all their spells immediately and dump their hand is also like a benefit in and of itself, right? So a lot of things happening with this card. Overall, it's a B. It's not like super amazing good, but it is good. Next up is, let's go with some of the common cards. This one's the C tier card, kind of a normalish card, a little better than the Yeti. Light of the Phoenix is what it's called. It's a 4 mana fire spell. Draw 2 cards. Cost 1 less for each damage friendly character. You're probably damaged. I mean, like, your hero has probably, like, lost some health. Not that, you know, you are psychologically damaged as a human being because you have played Hearthstone Arena for way too long. So it's probably a 3 mana, draw 2 cards at its base. And then as your minions get damaged, it could be 2 mana, and that'll be nice. Sometimes it could be 1 mana, and that'll be even nicer. So this is significantly better than our Arcane Intellect. It is a C tier card. The other common card is Blazing Power. It is a D+ card, so somewhere between a Croc and a Yeti. It's not great, but it's draftable. 2 mana fire spell. Give a minion +1/+1. Repeat for each damage friendly character. Again, you're damaged. You can maybe some of the other characters are damaged, but it's at least a 2 mana +2/+2 if you're not trying to play a curve. And then it will potentially be a 2 mana +3/+3, which would be nice. But for the most part, it's a 2 mana +2/+2. And you can't play it in the early turns, which is actually, like, if you look at normal 2 mana +2/+2 like spells, they are actually rated decently, and this one is rated poorly. And that's because there is a number of turns potentially in which you don't get to play this card. You'll eventually get damaged, but for a 2 mana card, you don't want to be waiting if you already have it in your hand to be able to use it. And you kind of have to. So it gets pretty awkward. Much more awkward than the Light of the Phoenix. Because the Light of the Phoenix is about drawing cards. And you don't really want to draw cards until later on in the game anyway. Because you would be anti-tempoing by spending the mana. So Light of the Phoenix works with what you're trying to do and getting damage stuff. Whereas Blazing Power works against that. Like, you want to play it for tempo as early as possible, and you're not allowed to. Sometimes. Finally, the last non-legendary card is Last Stand. It is a rare spell, 4 mana, draw a taunt minion, double its stats. This one's a D+. That's a lot of mana you're committing to drawing a taunt minion from your deck. You also may not have a taunt minion in your deck. You probably do, but you may not. But even in the event that you do have one, doubling its stats, is that worth like 3 mana? Because like drawing a minion for 1 mana, drawing a taunt minion for 1 mana isn't even worth it really. But like anyway, is doubling your stats worth 3 mana? If you could play it this turn, maybe if you have to delay a turn before you get those stats because you already spent 4 mana freaking drawing the thing, and the thing has its own like casting cost. Depends, right? You also don't know what you're drawing. It's random. If you draw an Annoyotron, doubling its stats does nothing. If you draw like a big taunt, doubling its stats is ridiculous. Essentially game winning. It's just a lot of RNG, and you're committing a lot of mana to it. It's D+. It's not undraftable. Like, it's better than a Croc, but you'd rather have the stability of a Yeti. Alright, so that's Warrior. There's a lot of stuff here. A lot of it is good. You could look at some of the synergies as like there's fire synergies, there's things getting injured synergies. Does it all come together? It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to come together. There's taunts. Nothing needs to come together. They're just individually strong pieces. And you've added enough of it to make, like, to kind of keep the Warrior where it is, right? Because Warrior always needs strong cards or else the hero power sinks it. So this is kind of a appropriate installation for Warrior. It will keep its power level at the good level. We'll finish this up with the 2 legendaries. Both legendaries are A tier cards. They're both good. Really good. Not S, but A. First one is Azvedon the Grand Shield. 3 mana, 3/3. Battlecry, cast a copy of the last spell your opponent played. 3 mana, 3/3, obviously not that great. But this is the last spell your opponent played. So as long as your opponent played something at some point, even if it's just a coin, you're going to get something out of this. And honestly, playing this for the coin is not a terrible idea if you get to do something with that mana. So this one is a tier card. If you can also just hold it and wait till your opponent plays like some kind of bomb or whatever, and then like try to like counter bomb them. Or if your opponent plays a card that draws a bunch of cards, you can like copy them. There's a lot of good things that you could do with this. And the best part really for this is that it's kind of an on-curve 3-drop too, depending on what your opponent has played before. Targets are random. Yes, targets are random. So certain spells are better to copy than others. But yeah, you want to notice that like even though this is less controllable than that rogue card that just kind of copies it, that rogue card ended up being a D or something, and this one's an A. Like, this is a huge difference. I'm like, why is there such a huge difference? One is because you don't want to really copy what you're doing again. That's not good. Two, you want to copy what your opponents are doing because they're the ones that could swing, and then you may need to counter swing. But the most important part is that this is a 3-drop. It may not be a great 3-drop, but it could be a great 3-drop. Or at the very least, it could be like a bad 3-drop. And that has actually a lot of value in this game. Like, you may think like D to A, that's a huge jump. But the fact that this is a potential 3-drop is probably responsible for more than a whole tier out of that. Okay, the other legendary card is Thoribalor. Thoribalor is a 4 mana 4/4. It has Rush. It has a Death Rattle. The Death Rattle says go dormant. Cast a fire spell to revive Thoribalor, and it can revive up to 2 times. It's not infinite revive. You get a couple of decent fire spells in this expansion. Otherwise, there's not that many fire spells in Warrior, but you can cast them at any time, and it revives them. So 4 mana 4/4 Rush is already pretty decent, and then just at any time that you happen to get a fire spell, you just get an extra 4 mana 4/4 Rush. So that's an A tier for you. All right, that's it. That is the whole March of the Lich King card review. I mean, if you noticed, there are some good class cards, but for the most part, it's kind of a weak set outside of neutral. And even in neutrals, it is a pretty weak set outside of the top 3 cards. So I think overall, a lot of the review in the class card sections is just me being disappointed at what the class cards are, or at least being like, not like they're too normal. Even the powerful ones, right? They just like do stuff. It feels like a set that's kind of convoluted, but it should be coming 4 years ago with the power level of now, but the type of stuff that it's doing, right? It's just doing pretty basic things. And that's the whole theme of March of the Lich King. Like, if there's one theme to put in March of the Lich King, whether it is Death Knight or whether it is all the cards that they put in, is that very normal things are happening. It is crouched in a lot of words. This is probably the most wordy expansion that I've ever seen. But between all the words and all the fancy Death Knight stuff, it is just very, very down to earth, normal Hearthstone stuff that is happening, and it is happening at the appropriate modern power level. It is not pushing the envelope, it is not like super bad or anything. It's just unexciting, very normal things that they have tried to package in as exciting of a way as possible. And overall, that's probably okay for me. Like, Arena is all about the unexciting stuff. Like, the unexciting stuff is what matters in the arena. So you actually have a lot of pieces over here that'll fit nicely, if unexcitingly, into the arena, including Death Knight. And you'll get a pretty familiar experience. These cards are going to feel powerful because the sets they're bringing back are not powerful sets for the most part. But overall, this is a pretty controlled set, which is why the 3 cards that are common, neutral, and A tier are going to stick out like super sore thumbs. Like, not Bloody Knight. I don't know why I'm showing that. The Nerubian Vizier, which is going to discover spells, along with Pandaren, which is also going to discover spells. So whichever classes happen to have absurdly overpowered spells, you're going to have a fun time facing them when they Vizier and Pandaren and Porter out. And then for all the other classes, and those classes included, Silvermoon Sentinel is just a bomb. That also provides stability and can be used as a 3-drop. The other Silvermoon Armorer, is another mini bomb that will swing the board in huge ways at a 1 turn earlier than 8 even. And they're just going to kind of dominate the entire meta because they are common, because they have offering rate bonuses in the new set, and because the other sets and the rest of this set is frankly just not that good. So there you have it. That's Knights of the Frozen Throne, where the class cards sort of matter but not really, and it's going to be a very neutral game centered around really 2 cards, because the Nerubian Vizier is its power is in discovering a spell. So you won't look at it and think, oh, the Vizier is doing stuff. It'll just be whatever spells your class has. So it'll feel like Silvermoon Sentinel and Silvermoon Armor are the game. And it'll feel that way because they are the game. That is what the game is going to revolve around. And if you have one early adjustment to make, it's probably just to consistently ask yourself, what would I do if they Silvermoon Armor? What would I do if they Silvermoon Sentinel? Until they prove that they don't have these cards. At which point you could, like, do other stuff. And if you're drafting, always pick these cards. And then, they're flexible cards, right? There's no such thing as building your deck around one of these cards. But pacing wise, it means you have to account for these. So no fast decks. Definitely no fast decks, especially with Street Sweeper in the meta. Definitely no fast decks. Mid range, lower mid range, possibly control. Those are your only options. And with control, you better have some class cards. Better have some class cards to back it up, and those class cards don't really exist in this set. They better be coming from the old sets. I looked through some of the old sets. There's not that many class cards that do the control-y stuff. So I feel like this is going to be a very mid-range, slow mid-range kind of swingy meta. All right. That is it for me and for this whole entire review. Hope you guys had a good time. Hope you guys got some food for thought. And I'll see you in the next meta on Tuesday. Reminder that stream will be happening Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Friday night, and then Sunday night as normal. So the 2 extra streams are Tuesday and Wednesday night, and it will all be me solo. I don't know when Merps is coming back to streaming, but we will see how things progress. All right. So until Tuesday then, or if you're listening to the podcast until next Sunday, this is Adwicta, and we'll see you then.